Well, look, it's a great pleasure to be here and to see all of you up what is kind of early for a lot of us. Denise and I have come from Bogota. I spend time in Brooklyn and in Bogota, Colombia, and that's with the O, by the way, because Colombia is not as popular in New York these days. Maybe together with my helper, we prepared a very extensive academic paper, which is available on the site through Bjorn and others. It has some background on this topic. I promised not to talk about AI, even though he helped. With that, we'll just maybe jump in a little bit. From Brooklyn, one has to have a gripe, right? So we came in via Köln, and we sat down looking across at the cathedral. What do we see? 6 guys come in on their electric bikes, and I've been a cyclist for a while. Not much work going on here, not much hard creating anything, but they had a lot of beers. And it caused me to think about, effort, work, writing, long studies lead to creativity. And so what we think we're going to work on here is that a bike without riders. This is the next stage that's coming. No AI, but that's what we're working on. So places like this, and this really is a unique place. I know it's a bit on a pause, but it's coming back hard. One of the things you think about globally is how do we create creativity in this? And this chart, is a little bit in your face, but when you look at it, you see the China rising, and you see these great big names that might not be around in 10 years, believe it or not, but there's this dominance in the U.S., this creativity. How do we get that? Or how does one get that? And today I'm saying that I think you get creativity, hard work, and those sorts of things in places just like this, and quite a bit more. So what's going on a little bit in the U.S. and has for a long time, and I expect most of you are like Denise and I, we travel around a little bit and so on, but in the U.S., there's this search for home and this search for place, this search for kind of an attachment to something. And this is the sort of thing that a lot of Americans want to go see. They want to be involved in it. And this is what we get, the Buffalo Bills Stadium, right? This is culture in a lot of the U.S. But there's something important about that, I think, because culture is something that is experienced not by the cultural chameleon, and that's what I am. I can come here, enjoy it, go off, and many of us, we can experience it. But most people enjoy their culture in Buffalo, in the U.S., and they want to go and see this stadium and see the Bills play. And then currently, we're working on the Garden of Heroes, all right? And we have a shortage apparently in sculptors in the U.S. We can't get enough of this done, but we're going to get this done. North Dakota's going for this and so on. But we're going to spend a lot of money on that. I'm not going to go one way or the other on that, but we allocate for all kinds of reasons and looking at that. And then downtown Chicago, beautiful old post office. Don't need the post office too much anymore. So what do? We renovate the whole thing for billions, well, maybe not billions, hundreds of millions, and we put platform tennis courts on the top. Maybe some better choices out there. So these cultural chameleons actually have a lot of power. Our politicians do, all of us do. We vote, we influence, and so on. Tyler Cohen recently wrote in the Free Press, which is very popular in the U.S. now, that locally, Buffalo and wherever, you're tied to this, but the people who are making the influence on this can make some decisions that can be very, very helpful. And I think that applies it's beyond me to say that it applies here in Berlin as it does in Buffalo and New York and so on. For a little, I think the numbers will show that you get a lot. And this place flourishing, I think, can give a lot. So what to, I see this in as a brand, kind of a creative cultural collective of all sorts of innovative sorts of spirits. I mean, 39 folks and so on. These are the types of developments where you have urban lost spaces that neighbors can support, so you can actually get it done. It took forever to build Barclays Center in Brooklyn, where I now hang out, not in the center too much, but there was there just wasn't much support. Now, was it a good thing or not? Not that, but here, I think the neighbors and the community can get behind something like this. It enhances, you have to say it enhances the brand of a city. You have something that is really unique. You know, you kind of lose the mojo a little bit, you know, when the punk rock goes away. No, not everybody's wearing black and these kinds of things. And look, or beards in Brooklyn or whatever it is, you've got to have something that is beyond that. And you also, in their studies, the University of Pennsylvania has done it, that gardens in cities, collectives like this, bring people together. It coalesces people. They're doing something together. They're creating things together. And it gives a quality of place, that home that a lot of people are looking for, you know, as we move forward. So here we are. I took some pictures. Yeah. I mean, it's just a beautiful feeling. Obviously, it's summer. You know, we are in the middle of the winter and so on. But you can just feel that this is coming back, thanks to all of your efforts and hopefully efforts of others who will join in. Now, being U.S. people, and you know, whatever, don't pick on myself, but we have a calculator for this. It's in the study. If you take a look at that, and you can calculate out. The inputs do have an effect, but you can calculate all kinds of savings from arts and culture. And there's a whole world, you know, come up and say that, you know, this museum did that, you know, this symphony did that, and so on. I would posit that the cultural collectives are more sustainable than a lot of those sorts of things. Also, the leadership of a cultural collective like this is very key. And Bjorn seems to have done a pretty good job, yeah. And all of you as well. So in this study that my buddy did, these are some installations that are on there. I'd highlight one as Industry City, which is a short regular bike ride away from my apartment in Brooklyn, is pretty special. Now, it had virtually no government support except for zoning support. It's about $1 billion came in. That's, you know, quite a bit of shekels. To just totally renovate these buildings that were just lost. They're called the Bush Terminals down along the water at Sunset Park. And there are thriving little industries, many industries, in places to hang out there. And it's just a great story of public-private cooperation. Now, I'm not saying real estate development here, it's way, you know, but I'm saying that with the right support, you can get a lot out of a place like this. This is courtyards in between. There are about 6 big buildings, and then the bay is out that way. And a lot happens in this place. It's a fulcrum for that area of Brooklyn, which is a little bit not yuppie, but brings people down. And then we know the shipyard in the Netherlands, and a few other spots around the country. I'm originally from Seattle, and downtown Seattle, there's this awful gasworks, and they just said, let's just leave it and turn the rest of it into a park. If you dig down about 6 inches, you don't want to know what's there, you know. But it's a beautiful use of space, and not as much a collective, but use that. And then, you know, this you know from Essen, you know that. Marseille's done some wonderful things. Madrid with the slaughterhouse. and up in the left-hand corner, a building called the Bach Center in Philadelphia. Just a lot of vibrancy, a lot of young creatives working there. And finally, in this paper, some sort of takeaways, maybe food for thought. There's some links in all of this. Secure public ownership. I mean, I may be preaching to the choir a little bit here, but let's get the long-term lease in shape, so you get a longer future, so you can plan on this. Leverage your funding sources. The Highline Park, if you've been to New York, is just a wonderful story of going out and finding community support, using art to attract people to just abandoned railroad, and leading to real economic development around that area. And be inclusive in your governance. Get good governance. I mean, without good governance, you find groups like this. This is where the public should be putting its money, in my estimation. And help it flourish, and then help it bring others in. And with thanks for the supporters that brought me here with a little bit of funding, more of this transatlantic collaboration. I think it's great. We're having a wonderful time in Berlin, and I'm really, really happy, to be here. I've got like 4 minutes for any questions, any shots. You want to take a shot at Trump? I don't care. If not,
I got a question.
Yes.
In one of your first meetings, you showed the level of creativity in several countries. How do you measure that?
Market cap. Market cap.
Okay.
No, obviously it's impossible to see, but you can look at number of startups, and it can be a lot of bad startups. You can look at users on AI platforms, those kinds of things. But that was really a market cap of Alibaba versus Google and all these kinds of things. It was creative at some point. I mean, Jeff Bezos getting married this weekend. Bjorn and I didn't get an invite, but he had this little office in Seattle. I mean, I'm sure most of you know that story. And something brought him to that city. He wasn't from there. There's a story, and he came in and did that. But what is creative? These are hard questions. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your talk. Thank you so much for your talk. I have a question because I was recently running an interview with the curator from Highline, and she emphasized, since you mentioned Highline, and she emphasized that only 1% of their funding comes from public funding. All the rest is private funding.
Yeah.
So is there a chance you could say a few words about the prospects of public funding for arts in the cultural sector in the US or in New York City or around New York City?
Oh, there's huge public funding for the arts, but it's sort of the usual sorts of things. But the Navy shipyard is I think it's a $750 million public investment in a creative sort of group. It's ended up being, some smaller businesses, $1 million, $500,000 business, but a lot of money's been put into that. The community gardens in New York have a fair amount of money, but if you look at the larger funding, it is in support of some of the culture. I don't have the statistics on our percentage versus Germany, UK, and otherwise. My guess would be double or triple, as a percentage in Europe versus the US. That said, there's been a lot of wealth created, and a lot of that wealth has gone into the nonprofits. So I don't think they're hurting overall on that. And the Highline was very special story, I think, of an artist and a vision, and just, I think one or two guys, and they just made that thing happen in an incredible way. But it's just kind of a place. It's a beautiful place, a place to walk, but the effect on that part of the city was great. Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here.